If you're new to growing on YouTube and you've been struggling to grow and struggling to get views, you're not alone. This was actually my story when I first started. My first channel that I actually built was called The HVAC Dope Show, and it's still out. We're still producing content on a limited basis for that channel. And that particular channel is for an HVAC company, which is heating and air conditioning. And so it was in a very specific niche. But when I first started that channel, I was having an experience that a lot of creators, maybe this is your story too, were experiencing. And that was I wasn't getting very many views. I wasn't getting a lot of subscribers, and I wasn't getting a lot of traction on my channel, and I didn't know what I was doing. And over the years, what happened was when I eventually started to have success on the channel, I started to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And I came up with basically the 5 pillars that every YouTube channel that is successful has. And we're going to talk about the 5 pillars that go into the making of every video so that you can start getting more views, more subscribers, and really start to enjoy the process a lot more, because you're going to start producing content that is actually what viewers want to see. You see, the first mistake I made when I started YouTube was I didn't realize how little people care. And what I mean by that is people who are watching your videos are coming to your videos for a reason. They want to get some sort of enjoyment or entertainment value out of it, or they want to be informed. That's really it. So they're either coming to be educated on something, or they're coming to be informed, or they're coming to be entertained. And those are the only 2 reasons that people really consume a measure of content. And although your content is free, you have to realize that people don't pay with their money, but instead what they do is they pay with their attention. Now that was something that I learned because after struggling for several years, I actually started following a creator by the name of Ali Abdal, and his videos were tremendous. They were super helpful. And that was one of the things he said in one of his videos that was kind of a light bulb for me, because he says, because people don't pay with their dollars, but they do pay with their attention, you need to deliver them with what they're expecting and what they're wanting when they click on your video in the first place. And when I understood that, that's when things really started to click for me. So the first pillar in this YouTube journey, and these 5 pillars are specifically for videos, and it covers everything from the video structure and the video format, and I'll explain what I mean by that, all the way, and it's centered around the idea of a viewer's journey in the YouTube ecosystem. And what I mean by a viewer's journey is how someone browsing on YouTube turns into a viewer of a video. And there's a couple things that have to happen. They have to see your video, they have to tune out all the other videos that are on the screen, they have to click on that video, and then they have to watch that video. And hopefully they watch 100% of that video, or even watch it multiple times. But the question becomes, how do you get someone to actually do that? How do you get someone to tune out all the other videos that are on their screen, zoom in and narrow in on your thumbnail, and click on your video? Well, I kind of gave it away a little bit with what I just said, because I mentioned the thumbnail, but that's actually pillar 2. But pillar 1 is actually as simple as the text that is known as the title. Now, the title of your video is arguably the most important part of your video, because it sets the tone for what your video is about, and it also contextualizes what the viewer can expect from your video. Now, there's a third component that it also does, and that's SEO. And what SEO is search engine optimization, because what some people forget, and I didn't truly understand this when I started my YouTube journey, was that YouTube is not just a social media platform, but it's actually a search engine. And so if you are starting a YouTube channel about aquariums, but your title doesn't have the word aquarium or reef tank or whatever the aquarium related keyword is that you're talking about in your video, and it doesn't have that keyword in the title, then YouTube doesn't know that the video is about that, and neither does your viewer. And so when they search for that, YouTube's not going to necessarily suggest that video to the right viewer. So really getting the right keywords into the title is a part of the equation that you don't want to miss, but it's not as important as the number 1 thing when it comes to titles, and that comes to making a title that is so irresistible that people feel like they have to click it. Now, I'm going to give you an example of a video that does this in a second when we talk about thumbnails, because the thumbnail was on this one video was excellent, and that's why, and this creator is known for doing these types of thumbnails and these types of titles that are just absolutely irresistible to click and very high quality content. But the basic things you need to remember about a title is that it sets the tone for the video in terms of what the video is about, and you want to create a title that piques people's curiosity. And the way you do that, and I'm going to use the example of fish tanks that I mentioned earlier when we're talking about aquariums. I'll give you an example of a bad title, and then I will also juxtapose that or give you an alternative with a good title. Now, let's say you wanted to make a aquarium or a video about fish tanks, and it was about reef tanks. You could say, this is my reef tank, and that would be your title. Well, that's a terrible title because it doesn't really give people a reason to click on this video necessarily, right? But if you were to title your video, build out of, if this was a build out video, build out of 800-gallon reef tank masterpiece, suddenly what you've done is you've given people a much more juicier expression or definition of what they're going to expect from your video. Now, if your video is not about that, it's not going to do you any good, because when they click on that, they're going to see that as a video about a little 5-gallon tank or something else, and that's literally the definition of clickbait. They will click away, and your title essentially just lied to them. So you want to make sure that your titles are authentic, but still find a way to make that title a little bit juicier and a little bit sexier so that someone would actually want to click on it and want to watch the video. Now, as much as the titles intellectually catch our eyes, the thumbnail is the other part of the equation that catches our attention when we're on YouTube, and the thumbnail is pillar 2 in our 5-pillar formula. Now, what is a good thumbnail? Well, a good thumbnail, the best way I can explain how to create a good thumbnail is by asking yourself this question. If I could only describe my entire video in one picture, what would that picture be? You can have some text, you can have a facial expression. This is why if you look at some of the videos that you're naturally drawn to, that you click on, think about why you click on them and why you are drawn to them. And for the purpose of giving you an example of what I believe is an excellent thumbnail that I saw recently and really captured my attention, and I can see why this video is doing so well. It's from a very well-known creator by the name of Marques Brownlee, and you've probably seen this video. And this was a video about AI in the context of the iPhone and some features that are related to the iPhone and AI. But what was so beautiful about this thumbnail, it was about an issue that was coming up with AI, or that was kind of the insinuation or the thought. And it was almost like the screen of the phone was sliding off of the phone, and it was almost like you could feel the AI oozing out of it in a kind of disorganized or discombobulated fashion. And it said, hey, there's something wrong with either this product or the AI or something. There's, it has some issues, but that picture alone basically spoke to the volume of, I think that video was roughly 15 minutes. It spoke to the volume of what that whole video was about. Now, the truth is, I didn't even watch that video because I'm busy and I try not to get sucked into YouTube rabbit holes. But my point is that was an excellent thumbnail, and I was almost too good that I just absolutely had to click on it because I thought it was just a very, very well done thumbnail and a very well done title that tied in something that we all use and we're all interested about, which is AI in the current day and how it's impacting all of our lives. Now, the third pillar is arguably the most important because it is about the video itself, or rather the video structure. And when we're talking about the third pillar, what we're going to talk about is answering some questions that you want to answer when you're deciding how to structure your video. And the question you're ultimately answering is, how can I structure this video in a way that's satisfying to viewers? And how can I structure this video in a way that piques people's curiosity and keeps them engaged and continues to rehook them so that they stay engaged throughout the entire video? Because by answering those two questions, what's going to happen is you're going to start to realize that in order to keep people engaged, you're going to need to constantly re-engage them in the video and remind them why they clicked on this in the first place. You see, you came to this video to learn about the 5 pillars of growing on YouTube. And so I'm constantly talking about the 5 pillars of growing on YouTube. I'm talking about how to implement them, how to execute them, why they're important. And the reason this one is so important is because the number one metric that YouTube looks for in order to gauge viewer satisfaction is actually what's called viewer watch time. Now, your thumbnail and your title determine a metric that's called click-through rate, but viewer watch time, which is how many viewers choose to click on your video versus how many times they showed it to people. So if they show the video to 100 people and 10 people click on it, that's a 10% click-through rate. That's an excellent click-through rate. That's very, very good. YouTube will continue to show your video because it's getting a high click-through rate. However, when people click on your video, they're only watching 5 or 10% of your content. Eventually, YouTube will determine that your video is clickbait and will stop showing it because they can see that if people are only watching 5 or 10% of your video, they're not very satisfied. So the number to aim for is 80%. However, anything above 50 or 60%, depending on the niche, depending on the length of the video, is really considered excellent retention. And some niches are going to have higher retention requirements. Other niches are going to have lower retention requirements. But the bottom line is anything you can do to keep people more engaged so that they stay watching your video longer tells YouTube, and it tells the YouTube algorithm that, hey, this is a good piece of content. This is a valuable piece of content. It's adding value for the viewer. The viewer is satisfied, and the viewer is going to stay on YouTube longer, consuming this content longer. Therefore, they're happy. Therefore, you should suggest this piece of content to more people in the algorithm. And speaking of which, if you're enjoying this content so far, we put out content on how you can grow a YouTube channel from scratch. And so if you're enjoying this content so far, please consider smashing the like button for the algorithm and subscribing to the channel. It's a free way you can show support, and it's much appreciated. Now, the fourth pillar is something I actually learned from a YouTuber that I had the pleasure of meeting through my HVAC company, because he actually happened to have questions about HVAC, and he had just sent me an email that was along the lines of, hey, Howard, I have 3 million subscribers on YouTube. I'd love to give you some pointers in exchange for some HVAC help. And that definitely caught my attention when that email was forwarded to me from one of my staff that got the email because it went to our catch-all mailbox. bucks. And I had the pleasure of speaking with this gentleman. And one of the things he said to me that really stood out is he talked about what's called format. Now, when you look at the types of videos that are on YouTube, you have video podcasts, you have different types of entertainment or educational videos. Sometimes you have a talking head video like this. Sometimes you have a how-to or DIY video. But why format is so important is that once you create a format, so I do a lot of talking head videos on my channels. And the reason is because I find them easy to produce in terms of I don't have to go anywhere. I can do them in the comfort of my home, in my studio. I can shoot them at the office. I have a lot of options to choose from when it comes to producing a high volume and a decent quality of these types of videos versus putting out some videos that might take, higher production quality, or they might have a lot more moving pieces or multiple camera angles or camera people or drone photographers. And although I'm not discouraging you from doing those types of videos, what I'm saying is that once you start to learn a format that works for your channel, it's great to start to double down and stick to a specific format. And the reason is because people who like to watch video podcasts will watch more video podcasts. An example of someone that does video podcasts well and has very simple but elegant titles and very simple but elegant thumbnails is a channel you've probably heard of called Diary of a CEO. And I've watched this channel grow to now it's almost at 10 million subscribers, and it's been awesome to see him grow on his journey. But that channel follows a very specific format every single time. It's a long form video podcast. Most of his videos are at least a couple of hours long. And so as a result, YouTube knows that people who are interested in that particular type of content, the YouTube algorithm knows exactly who to show those videos to. So if you look at your own channel, what you want to look at is if you're doing a mix of interview, podcast type content, and also doing talking head videos, your channel can still gain traction and work that way, but just know that finding a format that works for you and is both easy to produce and something that you enjoy producing is going to be the biggest determining factor of success. And then what you want to do is look at what people who have a similar format in your niche are doing and try to be one of the best, if not the best, at that particular format. And by doing this, you'll stand out in the algorithm, you'll get better retention, and you'll have higher engagement rates with your content. And this is going to be things that tells the YouTube algorithm people are loving your content and to show your video to more people. And the fifth and final pillar is something I like to call YouTube magic. Now, YouTube magic is a combination of both the algorithm, but it's also a combination of something that tends to happen over time, and it's the reason you don't want to delete any of your videos. You see, the first time I dropped a viral video, it didn't go viral overnight. It actually didn't go viral for months, and it didn't go viral by most people's standards in terms of it ultimately landed around 100,000 views, but for my channel, at the time, I was getting an average a few hundred views or maybe 1,000 views on a video. And so for me to get a video that landed 100,000 views was an indicator that video answered a lot of questions that people were looking for at a specific time. And so when you post a video on your channel, if it doesn't go viral overnight, leave it, because 3 months from now or 6 months from now, what's happening is YouTube's algorithm is working in the background. And especially as a new creator, the YouTube algorithm might only be showing your content 1, 2, 3 people a day. And so it takes a while for them to find out who actually wants to click on your videos and who's watching your videos in their entirety. And once it learns who your ideal viewer is, this is where that YouTube magic kicks in, because YouTube now magically knows exactly who to show your videos to get more views. And this results in more impressions, which means more views. And these impressions and views are coming from people that are your ideal viewer or people that are really looking for this content. And it creates a positive feedback loop. So now YouTube continues to share your videos with the right viewers that are interested in viewing this content, which results in your video view count going up and your following starting to grow, because the algorithm finally understands who your videos were made for. So if you found this content helpful, please smash that like button for the algorithm, consider subscribing to the channel, and watch this next video.